almost asked you this already.
Right.
But anyway, so your question from the last guest that you've not heard yet is, as someone involved in the music industry, what is your opinion of TikTok?
Right, cool. So I get a cool opportunity now, which is Joe just asked me this question, but he had technical difficulties and we restarted. So now I get to think twice on a podcast, which is insane. Okay, but there's points I want to keep, which is the first thing I said, and we're going to go into this because we did, and then we restarted, is that I am uncomfortable when I hear music industry. Associating the word industry and commoditization with the production of art is always something that makes me a little bit iffy. And that can go hand in hand with TikTok. What I went in is that TikTok is just this micro fractal of the big fractal of categorization and a neatly dividing everything, division of content down to smaller and smaller pieces, so that it's more easily consumed. It's easier for companies to make money out of it, to sell you stuff, sell you advertising. That's just the way we have been going in terms of not just music, all media. That's why it's called, social media. But going into what it does to music, I think a lot of us are becoming more and more conscious that when you're on a 15-second based clip thing, and you can so easily, with algorithmic mind reading precision, switch to another piece that's probably tailored to your interests, that you start to lose, if you play into that, some of the nuance that you might want to keep in the art that you're doing. Namely, that I just said a 2-minute whole sentence. That's something that wouldn't be happening on TikTok, not even Instagram. That's why we like podcast format too. So we need to be well aware of what we're losing. That's what I think about music TikTok in the bad sense. And in the good, in the optimist sense, is this phrase that I keep saying these past few months and years, is that beauty always finds its way back in. And what I mean is, if you play into this new method of content distribution, if you play your music into that, some people see that and think about that and they go, oh no, art is art. I do whatever art I want. And that is great. And when someone does the art to play to the medium too, you get just the shaping of culture and art all at the same time. And you get stuff like I mentioned, hyperpop. You get these super loud, super attention grabbing, super short songs that are just maximum stimuli. And it creates something that moves people. So this shaping of content into smaller and smaller, where you should be seeing people just trying to get more and more of your money and attention, which is true, you can also choose to see the way it's shaping culture. You need to see both ends. That's what I think about music TikTok again.
Well, to be fair, the good thing is actually this is better than I thought it was going to go.
Right.
The thing is, I was thinking I'm just going to be sat here just like, yep, I know this. But actually, the good thing is, what you didn't say before was the kind of the more positive side. And I think because I'm a bit of a like doomsday kind of person when it comes to TikTok. I'm very much like, oh, it's awful. But
we're
actually,
fucked. Yeah.
But it's not necessarily. And I think I'm somewhat hopeful that maybe, I think things naturally in society, they tip to one end of the scale and then they quite often tip back. If you look at like politics, social views on things, you end up going you go from one extreme, people go, whoa, that's not good. And then you kind of end up going sometimes almost to the other extreme. And then it's about finding that middle ground. And I think TikTok might be on its, maybe it's not even at its most extreme form of short form attention grabbing content, but surely it's got to be close.
No, it isn't. When the AI is in your brain giving you instantly what you need, that's on a millisecond basis. So
maybe we got to ride it out a bit. But I think more specifically, in terms of how short and immediate the content itself is. I think there are benefits that we could embrace, when it comes to, again, connectivity. We talked about kind of you can connect with anyone very quickly. And actually, for example, like I said, I share reels of the podcast on Instagram and on TikTok. And I like to think, although they're very short clips, they do kind of represent what the podcast is. So I don't feel like I feel like it's adding something. I can give people a short insight into what hopefully this is about. It's essentially an advert, isn't it, really? But it is a way of sharing information with people as well. Like, I pick the moments out that I think people will find interesting. A, because I think, let's get them in and listen to the podcast. But B, because I think there's some inherent value in them, in themselves, So, and, some people, I'll only share maybe a couple clips because what they said, they might say something that one person says in 30 seconds over the course of 10 minutes, and it's just impossible to put that into a clip. Doesn't mean it's any less interesting.
Exactly.
It just means that I can't really find a feasible way of taking the information they've said and making it make sense, and actually giving the value that you get in the podcast in
the new format.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be conscious of. That's why I didn't say it's bad or it's good. It is what it is, but be aware of what is being lost, because with all change, you have loss and gain. You have people at both ends. Maybe you have people that are more on your end that just see lots of loss, that they just understand a lot of the loss that happens. And there's people that ignore a lot of the loss and try to focus on the gain too much. You've got to be somewhere in the middle if you wanna.
You can't have your gain too high.
Right.
Sorry.
If you wanna, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. If you wanna operate, if you wanna keep operating, because the problem is when you stop operating. If it gets you so down that you do nothing, or if you're so willfully ignorant about, this is what it is now, nothing's being lost, you can also drive yourself to denial and then worse, mental degradation.
It's all part of being a musician, isn't it?
It's all part of being a human. Yes.
Yeah. I think and again, and I'm going to ask this again as well, because I feel like we didn't really get into this in terms of connecting with people. Do you think there may be some things that we could do to kind of improve that, not just in music and in the music, buzzword industry, but just as people? Do you think there's anything maybe we could look to do to kind of connect better? Yes.
And it's right now I'm calling you, like I said before we started recording, and I'm in the middle of a recording session with Afonso. He's my childhood friend. We've been in school together since babies, and I'm working with him. So I'm not working with whoever the market decided will pay me most. I am working with my friend. Which, how does this speak to what you're saying? I guess now that I look at it, I only really work with friends, interestingly enough. So it's not that I'm saying only work with your friends, but how about working more with your friends? Like, I don't know. It's at the end of the day, you're trying to make a living, but how about thinking less about the market and more about the people? Yeah. Now that I think about it, like, I really take on little job from a market. I really work a lot with my friends, and that makes me enjoy this a lot. And then I'm definitely working towards a trend of more connection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to do as well, because a lot of people, the more popular you become, a lot of people want to be your quote unquote friend. And it's obviously, so like, I've not experienced that on a massive scale. Like I had a band sort of not so long ago, and we sort of gained a few fans, nothing massive. And the podcast is still growing, but like still had a few people where you feel like they're asking something of you, and of course you've got to hustle a bit. You've got to. I know there've been plenty of times where I've spoken to people, sort of, I jokingly say above my pay grade.
Right.
But, if I, for example, ask someone to come on the podcast, and I know full well that their time is sort of, well, I know everyone's time that I speak to is precious. But if I'm chatting to someone who I've even, in bands that I've been listening to for the last however many years, I always feel a little bit like I'm sort of, what's the word, kind of not groveling, but at the same time, I do think, well, I do try and offer something hopefully insightful and interesting that come out the other end of the podcast, whether one person listens or 10,000 do. There's something to take away from it. And I think going off what you said, actually, even if it's not working with friends, it can be about genuinely wanting to make friends with the people that you work with.
Right.
I feel like there are people that I've talked to on the podcast and people I've met through being in a band and stuff that there's a working relationship there, or a potential working relationship, but actually I just get on with them. And I'd much rather have 50% of the success working with loads of people that I really enjoy working with than double the success.
Right. And hey, Joe, what is success? What if spending more time with your friends was the success?
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. That's the thing about the words industry and the words success. They encapture so much of things that we take for granted that just might not be so. Yeah. What if success was working with your friends? It's funny. It's such a non-content way to say that, non-clip way, but it makes you think.
No, I could clip that in about 10 seconds. That's great.
Well, let's go.
No, you're right. I mean, I'm trying to redefine what I look at, how I look at success. So, for example, I recently left the band that I was in. I left about a couple months ago. It just wasn't working for me. I won't go into the whole detail, but
sure.
There was some tangible interest in the band to the point where success in the commercial term looked possible.
Right.
But you've got to kind of think, what do you want out of the thing you're doing? Like, so I dropped out of uni to go and pursue music, and I thought I didn't want that process to be sort of interrupted by something that I felt like maybe there was a chance of commercial success with the band, but I wasn't really happy, and I thought well, what's the point in being commercially successful in something that I'm not happy? You get money and you get, sure, things will happen along the way, and it might, because I think in my head I was thinking I'll just ride it out until this point or this point, until we play this festival or get a record deal. But I'm how long do I do that for? Do I ride it out for 10 years and then have a miserable 10 years? Sure, I've got somewhere in the industry, but it just wasn't, and I just kind of thought it wasn't working for me. But that's why, I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do. But I think you've hit the nail on the head with the relationship thing. We're figuring things out
as we go, and that's beautiful, because the way you said, to go back to the beginning, where just the current story of humanity is just to further categorize, divide. Everything could be a 0 or a 1. Artificial intelligence is going to be able to do everything if everything is categorized as a 0 or a 1. You're losing this account. Success has lost this account of connection and of, am I happy doing it? And you can get doomsday like you were about it, oh God, people are just going to be miserable. They're just going to take on these things that don't make them happy because they have to make money, and that's it. Or you can look at it like it doesn't work. People rebel. You quit school to do music. I quit school too. School was music, but I just went all out on YouTube for me. And you even quit music to do something you think will make you happier even in another niche of music. So there is always hope that people will gravitate to try to do something that really makes them happy. That's just another way of trying to save Joe from doomsday mode, I think.
Yeah. I think I do see a light at the end of the tunnel in a lot of it. I think sadly a lot of people find that quite late. And I think we might be getting towards a place where people find what they want later and later because they're just so misled by, and this could be specific to musicians. You know, if we were going to be specific to musicians, we could say there could be loads of people trying to find success out of commercially viable music when actually deep down they don't really enjoy it that much. Or, you know, if me doing the podcast thing right now, I could try and find success of just finding little sound bites, you know, maybe just trying to like rile you up and get you to say something that you regret and then put it on its, you know, like they do that as journalism, they do that all the time, don't they?
Yes.
But then and then I might find out actually feeding into the TikTok cycle in 15 years time, I didn't really want to do that. I think it's perhaps we're as a society delaying when you find that out because we're becoming so engrossed in these videos. And like I said, I find myself, if I go on TikTok to post a reel, if I go on Instagram, I can just disappear for like 10, 15 minutes, if not more. So I have to be quite strict with myself because it's so easy. And like with TikTok, you open it and there's just a video. There's no like, welcome to TikTok. It's just like, here, consume, you know.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before. As much as you, me, everyone should be thankful because these are the systems that allow us to live independently. Like I can make music out of my room and have money to buy food and eat. Like as much as we need to be aware of that, we also need to be aware of all the bad that it is making. Because look, they are stripping your attention span for money to sell you advertising. Be aware of this because it is happening. I think a lot of progress for musicians, especially if they're trying to deal with these formats and they don't know how, is the reason you don't know how is because some bad is being done to you. Like you need to be aware, like I said, of all that is being lost, but also all that is being gained. Holding both is where I think you survive.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I think it's always like hindsight is 2020. You know, like we'll probably look back on TikTok and all this stuff, or maybe not. I don't know, but possibly look back on it in again 10, 15, 20 years, if not more, and go, oh, why were we always? It seems so obvious that was bad for us in in certain ways. Anyway, I don't know. Hopefully, we'll just start to embrace at some point. It's difficult, isn't it? Because like. If you go to like places like China, you can't actually go on. I think as a kid, you can't go on TikTok past a certain time in the evening. And like part of me is like, I would kind of want that, but at the same time, it's like, do you really want to be like legislating all of your way into fixing people? You know, I'm not saying China is a good example. I'm just saying that's what they do. And it's like, it's difficult because part of me is just like, can someone just tell me not to go on this?
Right.
But it's difficult to avoid. This feeds into something that I always find this intriguing with people that kind of create regular content. I always hate using the word content, but you know,
it goes hand in hand with the industry word, but I get you.
Let's go with what should we say? Meaningful sources of media. Is that better?
Okay. Yeah.
Hopefully that's a better...
Do content. Yeah. I know what you mean by content.
Yeah. So when I say... I literally just mean broad stroke, you know. But so I noticed you'll very quickly, for example, if a song comes out, you'll be able to tab it out, put it on YouTube. Oh, and also I owe you a thank you because I teach guitar. That's my job.
Ah, there you go.
I've actually used one of your tabs to help teach one of my students. What song was it? Oh, I can't remember the song now. This is rubbish, isn't it?
Oh, that's fine. I'm happy already.
Oh, well, I'm glad you are. Yeah. Well, hopefully that's a thank you enough. But and he actually had a question. I mentioned that I was chatting to you and he had a question for you. Cool. So you're creating quite responsively. you have to be very responsive to what's happening, because obviously you're kind of locking into here's the next song from this band I enjoy.
Yes,
I'm going to cover this in like however many days or whatever. Do you feel a sense of pressure to maintain that, and how do you kind of work with that?
Yeah, so this is good. It's good to touch on this. This goes right into everything that we've spoken about so far, which is your taste for this, how happy it's making you, and what works in a market if you're trying to feed yourself. These very two simple things. Because let's go to the beginning. The way YouTube started for me and the covers was that, so I'm 17, was I? Or 18, or whatever. And I think, okay, I wanna play metal music. This might be the thing I like doing most in the world right now at this moment. So I want to shape my life in a way where I'm playing metal music often. That's what it was. Okay, what do I need to feed myself playing metal music? I had no idea. But one thing I had an idea. It was, well, there's two ways of getting money in this world. You're the Federal Reserve and you print it. I'm not. Or you get someone else to give it to you because you've given something of value and they give something of value to you back. And I'm like, okay, so I need an audience. I need people to care for what I'm doing, and I need to be doing something that people care about. And these covers were things that I was doing before already. These were like my little fun things, my little practices, was like recreating an entire song. And I'm like, okay, I will start sharing this. So that's how it started for me. It didn't start, there is engineering in it, there was, but it was engineering from a place of, here's something I like doing. So that's where it came from. And then to shape my likes and skills to a market was the doing it fast thing. Because I am classically trained. So I did what we call the conservatory for 8 years. And then I went to college in music too, classical guitar. So I have a very trained ear for Western music. So I can pick up on music very quickly. So when I did these covers quickly, it wasn't because of the market at first. It was just because I do them quickly. Then you find out, wow, this helps in the market. Because if you do it quickly, you grab the traffic from people who are listening to the song. And it was as simple as that. And when your question comes into, do you feel the pressure? Well, once you stop caring about doing them so quickly, then there's pressure, because it's like, oh, the market wants me to do these fast. And that is real. And that did happen. And it was up to me to be like, well, I'm either going to put a little bit of like job into this and give into the market when I don't like to do it or when I don't want to do it, or I just do it whenever I want. And I am fortunate enough to be able to say, I'll do this whenever I want. So my frequency is a lot less than it was, not a lot, but it's less than it was 3 years ago. And yeah, so the short answer is yes, that pressure is there. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to put it to the side with some mental work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing is to not give into the audience that you think you should be sort of trying to build, because I think the temptation, I don't think I've fallen prey to it too much, but there's always the typical example would be, you know, when a band gets a manager and the manager says, oh, you should write a song, you should start writing songs like this, or the label goes, oh, can you start writing X, Y, and Z songs rather than what you're doing right now? In the same way, you know, there's a certain thing that the market wants, and if you just sort of just give in to trends and what's popular at the moment, you're just going to be constantly under that pressure and stress of responding to whatever's happening. Whereas if you kind of just stay true to what you like doing and how you do it, I feel that's what I'm trying to work towards. So like with Twitch, which has been more successful sometimes than others. I just sit on there and just practice guitar, and like some people come and listen. I haven't done it much recently, but
Great.
I don't like. I try not to. I thought, okay, if I'm gonna sit and practice guitar, I might as well just turn a camera on and just like play.
That was sort of my story. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I think personally that's the way to try and do it and be happy doing it. So I don't, for example, if someone says, "Can you play me a song?" I can't just go, "No, sorry."
Right.
Like, if I were to do an actual session where I'm like, "Here, suggest a song," and I'll try and learn it or something.
Yeah,
that's different. But I just say, look, I'm kind of just practicing, and if you want to listen and chat, that's cool. But I'd rather build a smaller audience that just likes what I do and likes talking to me and interacting. I think that's more important. Do you find you're ever kind of tempted to give into, the quote unquote the audience, the trends and things?
Right. Not really. That's because that's how I'm built. And there's people that are and do a great job at it. People that are, because we're here talking about, it's important to stay true to what you want. And what some people want and like and are good at is to trend follow, is to keep pushing their message through whatever media just suddenly becomes more popular, which is good. I'm always thinking about my friend Nick Popovic, Nick Nocturnal.
Oh yeah.
And the way he was doing covers like I was, and then he switched to the reaction video style. He does a lot of that now. And he perfectly kept up with what was the more popular media style. And he still very much enjoys what he does. He's happy on stream, and he's building his audience at the rhythm that someone that follows these trends can do. And this just to make sure that people understand. Look, if you like to follow media trends, do it. Just because these two slower folks, these two Joes, are here saying that it's very important to stay where you like. Look, if where you like is being mobile through those, I think that's also important to add to the conversation. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing we're talking about, going from one extreme to the other. Both of us, the way we're talking about it, it's almost like you might get people so unresponsive. If we went to the extreme, you might end up with a society that's so unresponsive to trends that there's never any shared interest in anything, Right. So I guess there is like a middle ground to be found with it.
Yep.
I think it's a tricky one. I think I'm trying to figure it out. I think I'm getting somewhere, hopefully, with it. Definitely need to just put my phone away in the day. I think that's just for me. But yeah, I think what's important, and what I mentioned to you about the teaching, in terms of, I know you've done a couple of, I know a lot of what you do is kind of the covers and things, but I've seen you've done some lessons and some more informative stuff, as well as your podcast, to be fair. I think people forget that actually the whole point of, not the whole point, but in terms of content that people are interested in following, it's always the thing that they get the most out of. So if you can have the viewpoint of what can I give people that I genuinely want to give them, I think that's a good way to move forward. And I think what is interesting is, the way you put out the tabs and things, and for the songs you've covered and done a few lessons, and that is that it looks to me like you've kind of found a way to put out content that hopefully means something to people, but so it's like you're, without even trying to feed into the machine, you're kind of giving people what they want. So I think that, I guess the moral of the story is you can find a way to give people the content, quote unquote, that they want, and do the thing you want to do. I don't know what the question was there. I just
no. It comes back to, I'm always, beauty always finds a way to sneak back in. Just always. When it's those days where I think, well, fuck, another cover. Are you serious? There's days where that happens. There's looking at my guitar and being like, yeah, am I about to do this again? And then I do it because there is an element of market at this point. It is my job. I do take it seriously. And sometimes I will do a few just for doing them. That does happen. And I think it's completely fine. And why do I think it's completely fine? Because sometimes the one cover that you did just for the sake of doing it, for having something on the internet, which from the looks of our past conversations, like, don't do that. Don't do stuff just for the sake of putting it out on the internet. Love everything you do all the time. No, because sometimes those that I do without a lot of passion, I put them out, and suddenly there's one comment that has a few more lines than the others that says, look, I listened to the original song and it didn't click. Your version made me understand something else about this song's intention and reason of being in the world. Thank you. And I'm like, holy shit. Sometimes you don't know everything about what you're doing. Sometimes imagine letting the audience decide, right?
Yeah. That's really cool. And it's cool that I can see that you get genuine value out of that. I'm guessing more than the views themselves, you know, like that comment to me would be more insight. Or like when I said that my one of my students and I used your tabs for a song. Yeah. You know, and you're like, it's pump in the air, like,
yes,
shows. But it's good because I think I always say this to people when we talk about, if we're talking about something and there's like a conflicting moment where they're like, oh, I said this, but now I've said this. It's like, I think it's just about I think people are interested in hearing people figure things out as well. If anything, that's more interesting. If you're just so sure of your opinion, or you just, you know, it's like you're going to say the same thing in every podcast, aren't you?
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It kind of ties in a different way with the tabbing of songs and stuff, and the kind of being responsive to that stuff.
Yeah.
Have you found you've always been like a particularly sort of inquisitive kind of person? Because it seems like my analysis of it would be that it seems like you're quite interested in figuring things out and getting the detail and kind of delving into what makes these songs. Would you say you've always been like a particularly I guess inquisitive is the word, inquisitive person?
Yes, I have. Great insight. I've never really pondered the word inquisitive, but yeah, it's a great one. And yes, I have. So if the goal of all art forms, not just music, if the goal of all art forms is to use these human constraints to shape people's emotion, because that's what art is. You listen to music to feel a certain way. You look at a painting to feel a different way. So my definition of art has always been the use of boundary to shape human emotion. If that's all this is, then one of the ways that I personally, can most experience the art that these musician friends are giving to me is to actually learn it on my instrument too. Like, listening to a song is one thing. To spend hours in a row creating it again, I have to say that it gives me a different perspective on everything that I consume and then I later do a cover on. So yes, I am very inquisitive in that and other senses. Yeah.
What do you think's been the song that has surprised you the most, in terms of you thought it was going to be, maybe 5 out of 10 interesting to do, but it turned out to be like a way more interesting song than you ever thought it was when you first listened?
Right. There are examples. When you say that, I resonate, but I can't give you names. I am now looking at my video list. That's definitely something that happens. Just the fact that you have the insight that it might have happened to me means that it happens. So let's see. Let me look at this. Well, recently, the new Northlane album, for the listeners who don't know Northlane are a band that has been going through a sound metamorphosis, basically the whole band's life. But now John, the guitarist, is melding the metal style and the metalcore style with a lot of electronic music. He has his wall of modular synths, and he just makes this beautiful mixture of the sounds you associate with house, the sounds you associate with a metalcore. And this lends itself to the repetitiveness of house, that droning on a beat, that kick, that four kick, where it's very much about shaping your emotion a certain way, making you rhythm a certain way. And this clashes with the people who are expecting metalcore, which is, even if it's not that varied, it's more varied than the house style. So there's comments on my covers of new Northlane songs which are like, these songs aren't that interesting on guitar. Why are you doing them? And well, it's not all about that, is it? Because when I cover these songs and I go deep into that, try to go deep into that mood of what is this, not only sonic concoction, what is it trying to tell me, but also the lyrics of the music, and what is the message that is being allied to this sonic attempt at emotion. I gotta say that the new Northlane album has been striking many chords. Yes.
Yeah, I find lyrics super interesting. Like
so much.
I wrote the lyrics for the band that I was in.
Great.
I'm the guitarist, but I wrote probably 95% of the lyrics, and I always found that, like, I don't know what your view on lyrics is, but I always found that I try and find a way round saying something directly. I always like to be ambiguous with lyrics where possible, just so that people can kind of get their own meaning out of it.
Okay.
Have you got any, like, this is a very on the spot question. Have you got any, like, favorite lyrics that come to mind? Not necessarily from Northlane, just
any favorite
or
lyrics,
even just like a band whose lyrics you really enjoy.
Right. In metalcore, in the bands I actively listen to and cover, my favorite lyricist is probably, there are two. They're Jesse Cash from Era and Courtney LaPlante from Sparebox. Mm-hmm. And that is because of exactly what you're saying. There's this so beautiful balance of how metaphorical can you be. That's it. Because it's funny, people can interpret it so many ways, because you might be writing something and be like, oh, I wish I could just say, stand up for yourself here, because that's what I feel like. But that sounds pretentious. Stand up for yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, can I pretend to be saying that in another way? Like, and then he rose, or something like that. Like, can you do something else about it? And I gotta say that Jesse Cash, for example, like, when in the song Gungrave, when JT goes, this is a good balance of being literal but also not obvious. It's so simple. He says, all that you live for comes spiraling down. Like, that's not, oh, I'm so in the shit, or like, I can't get out of bed today, or it's no. And then after that, he says, catatonic, emaciated, all this pain that you yourself have created. And how many worlds can you build out of that? It's pain. It's clearly pain. But how many stories of pain can you build out of this? If that's what you're talking about, then yes, I think that's so important in lyrics and music.
Yeah, I love that's a good. I can kind of resonate with that. I think I like what you're saying about how many worlds can you build out of a particular. And the thing is also, I think good music is like that, in not just in the lyrical sense, but people will get different things out of different riffs or different drum beats. One drum beat might give one person a sense of anticipation, for another person it might, there's a bit of a universal understanding and consensus, right, but like it will mean different things, even just from the music you've listened to up to that point, let alone your own experience of things. So I think that's why I'm drawn to certain types of modern-ish metal, because I like that balance between complex to the point where it's new and it gives you something you've not heard before, simple enough that you can kind of resonate with it. I think that's where there's some metalcore bands nowadays. I mean, I wouldn't name any. I don't have any immediately come to mind, but I would know it when I hear it. Where I feel like in some places that balance is being a bit lost. Weirdly, actually, almost in the direction of being simpler than because there's some really difficult and complex riffs out there, but when you sum up what they mean harmonically, quite often I get kind of turned off when I hear riffs where it feels like a compilation of all the licks that guy's learned.
I understand this deeply. Yes.
and it doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. It's just like I feel like weirdly I actually hear that as kind of simple, not in the simple sense that it's like. So when I don't really want to name an example, but like I can kind of give you the structure. When you hear like, chug chug lick 1, chug chug lick 2. Now don't get me wrong, there's some really good riffs like that.
Oh yes.
If you go back to like Metallica, like they just, like, that's basically how they wrote their riffs.
It's just like, not clicking with you at the moment.
Yeah, there are certain bands out there, actually I'm not going to name them, but a couple have come to mind, where what I hear is kind of, instead of hearing the complexity that I think the guitarist is trying to deliver, in my head I'm kind of just hearing rhythm lick, or I'm hearing whatever the structure of the riff is and the kind of the harmony. But a lot of the time those licks won't have a particularly sound harmonic like structure.
Yeah.
So you don't have to build a riff off of like chord progressions or anything. I know that's what Periphery do a lot of that, where they kind of the riff is kind of like a riffy chord progression, which I think is really cool. Sometimes I hear those riffs and I'm like, that's not for me. Not Periphery, but just those kind of riffs. So I'm interested to hear. This ties really neatly into the question that my student wanted me to ask you that I thought was quite interesting. Is where do you think sort of modern metal maybe is going, and do you think it's good?
Yeah. Okay, so let's shut down your student right there. Good. Like, are you asking me if it's going to be good? This is part of the problem that we're talking about all the way from the beginning. So how can you classify art as good or bad?
So he didn't ask if it's going to be good. That was actually on me.
Okay, so I'm shutting you down.
You can shut me down. Yeah. No, I mean...
Yeah.
When I say that, I mean, okay, in your interpretation.
Yes. Right. It's always important. It's so important to add it in your interpretation or shape it a different way. Because again, just the categorizing everything, making everything binary, making everything short. Let's be very aware of what can be lost. So yes, where do I think it's going? My face lit up. If you're listening to this on Spotify, my face lit up when Joe asked me this question, because that's so exciting. Because the answer is, I don't know. And it's so cool to think about not knowing, about what is coming next. And it's so beautiful that your student has that question in particular. Well, if you want to be less philosophical, pretentious like I am, and be more practical, here are some sounds that I think are more in the collective conscious right now. So we can all agree, guitar bands are tuning lower. It's not stopping. I thought when I was 16 and 17 and I was on my 8th string playing E, an octave below standard, I thought, wow, surely we're about to take a break here and expand on what these instruments can do. But we've been going lower and lower in the pitch of the instrument. And that trend might further continue, because at this point, I don't know where the bottom is. And what does this make in music, which I think is so interesting? The focus becomes a lot about rhythm. So if metal goes lower and lower, the lower you go, the less pitch distinction you have. So it becomes more about rhythm and about groove. So that's the part about rhythm and groove that is actually tied to pitch as well. So we might be going lower, which is cool. And honestly, the other is the other sound thing that I think is more in the collective consciousness is that we in metal are sounding less and less like just a band. When is the last time you've listened to a song that was just guitar, bass, drums, and vocals?
Well, I'll go ahead and say my own band there.
Oh, really? You guys wouldn't?
Well,
Okay.
no, like, yeah. I mean, I know what you mean. There's a lot more going on. Like,
I mean, in a production, not live.
Yeah.
Okay. Because just if you're listening to metal in these modern times with these modern bands, you're listening to guitar, bass, vocals, and drums. And in the computer, we build a world around this. Or in the computer or in a wall like John from North Lane with synths that are analog. It doesn't have to be in a computer. But we're building worlds around our human members of our bands. And those worlds are only going to get, I think, louder in proportion to the band and more creative. We hear this in North Lane, where the electronics are creating a new world around the band and the instruments. The beautiful 3 songs that Spirit Box just released, they're building a completely different world of more industrial sounds, if you want to use that word, around what is their core of their beautiful band. I think these worlds that we build around the band instruments in modern metal are going to surprise you more and more, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me the key thing is that as long as we can use a lot of it ties into sort of technological advances as well, because there's just so much we can do now that we couldn't do,
right?
Or that maybe we could do, but it would take so long, and you'd need to know so much about so many things to, like, I can program quite a lot of stuff. I'm not brilliant at it, but I could put string instruments, for example, that's quite simple, into I know what notes are in the chords, so at the very least I could take some string instruments. I know roughly how their pitches kind of vary in terms of the notes they can play, and I could put that behind a song. Or I'm not very good with synths, but I'm sure I could maybe figure out some basic stuff.
Definitely.
But I think as long as it doesn't come to the detriment, again, it's tied right back to what we said at the beginning, as long as it's not to the detriment of what you really want to do. I think that's important. I think my worry is that, like, if music does become too susceptible to trends and changes. So, you talked about these, you said the more philosophical answer, and then you had the more literal answer. It's if people become sort of more susceptible to these trends and then just end up kind of copying what's happening, you end up with just carbon copies. And although what is interesting is that I think the evolution of music is much more what's the word? So, for example, it might take a few years before you hear a Metallica-influenced band, come out from, say Master of Puppets comes out in, 86 or something?
Right.
In my head, because it's not so immediately accessible as things are nowadays, it's going to take longer to hear a Master of Puppets-influenced band appear, in the coming years. Whereas there are bands out there that sound a bit like Spirit Box
already.
Spirit Box haven't really been like big for that long.
Yes,
big. And there are already quite a lot of bands that sound like them. So it's interesting how we've gone from, like, I mean, I'm making a bit of an assumption, but I think it stands. I think it's a sound assumption in that it would take longer to. I mean, I suppose in theory you could listen to Master of Puppets the day it comes out and you could learn that. But again, we can learn things quicker as well now.
Right.
So you can immediately take things in. Do you see that cycle kind of changing at all, or no?
Yeah, that's curious, because it only gets faster. It's what we talked about at the beginning. If TikTok 15-second on a phone is faster, imagine direct AI feed to your brain on a millisecond basis. It only gets faster. So the question is what we keep coming back to. How do you feel when creating it? Because I know when I write something in my DAW or in my guitar in my lap, and it sounds like Michael Stringer of Spirit Box, I'm also fine with it. I really like it. It's important to feel like, are you paying a homage? Are you copying it? It doesn't really fulfill you. Like, we know these things in our head. There is so much of intuition of things that we know. Like, it's when you said, oh, I've been hearing so many riffs where it's like chug lick 1, chug lick 2. But you also, as you said, you can tell when you're listening to that and you're like, oh, this doesn't click. There's something off. And when you listen to one of those and you're like, wow, this one had something to say. So like, it's art. So if you follow your heart, you will be fine. And again, beauty always finds a way back in. Even in the future, if there's a lot of music that is computer generated and that's making you scared, look, beauty is going to find its way back in. We are going to become, I don't know, a few of us can become algorithm masters. And who curates the most beautiful algorithm? Who has the best system that creates stuff with the craziest output? Like, if we know that we're losing a little bit of humanity, and we also realize that we are creating a different kind of beauty, maybe you're able to continue to operate and not go into doomsday mode.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we all kind of, as a society, start becoming a bit more homogenous and a bit more sort of, and as bands, if we all start just kind of sounding the same, it only takes one person to sound
different,
and then everyone can go, oh, you can do that. Like,
yeah, that's funny.
You have to look at like Hendrix with the guitar, like,
right? That's so amazing that you said that. Why look at everyone becoming the same as a disadvantage? If you're looking at this
makes it easier to spot the outlier.
Right. If you want to look at this in a market sense, or in a Darwinian evolution sense, where it's literally just the evolution of the strongest. Look, everyone's becoming weaker, so rise up.
It's a bit like there are certain things that are sort of ever present in life, aren't they? Like it's that that Pareto distribution, the 80-20 rule, isn't it? Things like that.
Right.
Oh, you got to wonder if music has that in it, that as we start becoming the same, suddenly.
Look, I think, let's say this in a funny way, I think humanity read one too many blog posts about the 80-20 rule. That's.
I'm not using that as an example. I'm just saying it appears in a lot of
places. Yeah, you're correct.
Whether it be in humanity or just in
music. Nature. Yes, I am agreeing with you, which is, if you start to only look, and I'm so passionate about this, if you start to look at things only through the lens of efficiency, oh man, the way humanity and society is built, you will be rewarded. You will be so rewarded. But we have built these systems in a way that isn't accounting for things, that isn't accounting for emotion, that isn't accounting for feeling, for touch. Never forget what you're losing, because efficiency is very important in the way that we have organized ourselves from the dawn of humanity. Efficiency is important, but when you focus only on efficiency, you can be miserable. You can be miserable.
Well, it's like the amount of time, if you think about the amount of time you save in a day compared to like 50, 60, 70 years ago, right. I can send anyone a message. I don't have to send them, I don't have to write them a letter. I could even speak it if I wanted to, and do text to speech to text. Could communicate in no time. If I want to buy something, I don't have to go to the shop to get it. So the amount of time we've saved over the last half a century, but like, are we happier?
Are we happier?
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And even more practically, Joe, which is what amazes me, do you feel like you have more time in a day than your ancestors that live in 1940?
Well, I mean, so the answer is I know I do, but I don't feel like I do. So I feel like it's taken by distractions and things.
These things are not accounted for. These feelings that you're having and that we're having and that we're describing here, they are not accounted for in the systems that we've built for society. And everyone's waking up to this. And damn me if these systems are hard to change. But we all understand this deep down. It's why you said, look, I imagine, you said, I envision a world where in 30, 40 years, we'll look at TikTok and say, wow, that was obviously bad in these aspects. You're envisioning a world where we understand it, where we are understanding certain things that, oh, look, yeah, we haven't accounted for this. It's unaccountable for. That's why when the TikTok questions come up, I'm always feeling like I'm fighting the accounting of things, the categorization, the encapsulating of this in data, because you can't. Like the way I love you right now because of the accident that we had at the beginning of the podcast, you can't put that into zeros and ones. Oh, it's so deep. It's so deep. Yeah, maybe the systems will change. Maybe they won't. But beauty finds its way back in, bro.
Yeah, that's a good title for the. I don't title my podcast, but that would be a good. Maybe I should start titling them. But then one day I'll have a podcast with someone who just like says everything just really binary, and I'll just be like, what do I call this one?
Right. Yes and no with XYZ.
Yeah. Yeah. Call it 10111110.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, it ties in nicely with metal as well, doesn't it? Oh, you cracked me up when you.
That's funny.
What was it you were doing? You said something 101, and then you played 101.
And then I played 101, and that was my educational
that was so
video.
Wonderfully stupid that I just loved it.
Oh, bro, it's genius. And you can't. YouTube Studio doesn't account for. Look, Joe Rowley laughed at this second of the video. Yeah. You see what I mean? That's what I'm talking about.
But that's about it. Like
that is about it.
Yeah. I think one thing I like. So when you look at social media and things, I think so a lot of when you look at like influencers and influencers.
Yeah. There you go.
And companies. There we go. Got it. They will advertise their rates based on their following and their engagement and interaction. And I think it's almost like we're on a bit of a, we're kind of in a bit of a cycle where, that's how success is measured as like in terms of if a company comes to you and wants to promote something.
Yep.
But if you think about it, if we just got rid of every single format in which we can like, or at least in which people can see how much a piece of content has been liked or commented on or whatever. Comments are a bit different because there is interaction there. But if we were to just get rid of that, if people go, well, how do we know who we can, who to invest in? It's like, well, they did it off of sales before. There are other ways to do it. We don't need to just like measure everything off of likes and things. And I think I'd love it if Instagram and all of these got rid of the like counter, at least the like counter, and maybe how many followers you have as well, because then the merit of what you do would just be down to, maybe the comments. It'd be cool to keep comments, possibly, although even some of them are a bit rubbish.
Right. Yeah.
Then because then the merit of what you do is just down to, is it good or not? And you know how the amount of times I go on Instagram and the algorithm will sort of plan out the order in which I see things. It's like, I really wish I just saw things. I follow things because I'm interested in things and people because I'm interested in them. So like, if things just appeared in just a chronological order of when they were posted, I'd be happy because it's like I follow the things I'm interested in.
Right.
So if one appears before the other, I don't care. If anything, I'm more likely to scroll through to see when the ones thing I liked, what happened. So I think there's a lot of, like you said, there is the pros and cons, but I don't know, I think it's a little bit harmful for music at the moment. So but yeah, like I think we kind of touched on quite a few important topics, which is cool. Hopefully, perhaps more insightful than if we were to just talk about, what's your favorite tuning,
right?
So I like to kind of go into that stuff.
It's all frequencies. Yeah.
What was he? So yeah, there's one. Yeah, there was one more question that I think maybe is more practically useful for just for people that are here for the more musical side of things.
Right.
Like if you actually, I've got two kind of very similar questions.
Do it.
What would be your advice maybe to a band or even just like someone who wants to get out there as a musician, starting out advice? You've got no material, no followers on Instagram, nothing. You just want to start. What do you think would be like if you could think of a brief bit of advice, what would it be on a practical sense? No philosophical answers here. We're going fast, practical.
What would you do? Yeah. Because it's funny because the philosophical is practical.
Exactly. Oh no, I totally agree.
Yeah, because the practical is, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
That is question number one. What do you want to do? And after you figure out what you want to do, well, if we're talking about starting out and we're talking about having a measure of commercial success, well, figure out where what you want to do meets a market where people want what you're doing. So figure that out. And once you figure both of those out, figure out in the internet, because it's going to be in the internet, where are the channels in media outlets that get what you're doing to the most people, and where you can, here's a horrible word, sell that to those people. Yeah. Let's use the word give that to those people. Yeah. And then it's honestly different levels of how deep are you going into how are people going to pay me back? Because that's what you choose. Do you like to play shows? Go more that route, the physical route. Would you like to design and sell merch? Go more that route. Do you think you can make it on streams? Do you want to? Because, for example, like you don't make a lot on streams, right? What if you're this amazing person that literally wants to release an EP every week because that's just the way you operate? Well, if you meet that with the streaming market, maybe you can add what you like to do with a market, and maybe you can actually achieve commercial success as well and feed yourself. So that's an example. If you're a super hyper creative one, you can find a market for that. If you're a person who likes more of a slow, like you like something with more thought, with more depth, maybe you like a podcast, maybe you like storytelling through big videos. Find the channels where what you like to do is happening and being spread through algorithms and publications, and get to work. Because it's the truest cliche ever. Work. The cliche, I never remember how it goes because I always do my version of it. But it's like, you like what you do, you don't have to work a day in your life. Well, if you like what you do, your life is work, and work is beauty. Work stops being a bad word. Work stops being even a concept. It's just life. So yeah, find that thing. It's very practical, actually.
I'm really glad with how you rounded that off, because it was funny. It's funny you said the whole never work a day in your life kind of adage, because I was thinking, I always find that term a little bit frustrating, because I think that
I want to work is what you think.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I like how you turn it around. You say, like, because I think you do. I think there will be times if you're working towards something that you love, where there are moments that you don't enjoy so much, but you see the purpose at the end of it, kind of thing. Because I think never work a day in your life almost implies that you enjoy every single moment of it. In the moment are enjoying everything, but hopefully it's more the grand sum of the parts, isn't it? At the end.
Yes.
But yeah, and then one other thing I was just interested in is how do you stay productive with, because you turn out quite a lot of, I know we've said it already, but content.
Yeah,
but you turn out quite a lot of stuff. You're quite active with just being a personality, and I see your stuff popping up all the time without having to kind of search it out. So obviously you're keeping busy. How do you, especially when we talk about these content cycles and distractions, how do you stay productive and focused?
Yeah, it does circle back to the same thing, which is I like doing it. It's funny because it's not very practical, where the listener now goes, oh, I don't like doing it, so am I fucked? Well,
or maybe you just got to find what you like doing. Maybe you're not doing the right thing.
Right. Maybe you're not doing the right thing. And yeah, let's leave it there. Let's not say too much.
That's a good. I think that is a good place to kind of leave it. So what you need to do, we need a question for the next guest, and I need you to plug an artist or just a person. It doesn't actually have to be an artist, but like a musical person maybe, or artist, like I said, that needs a bit more
Yeah.
recognition for what they do.
Okay. I am going to ask the following guest of the Turn That Shit Down podcast.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time music truly made you happy? When did music make you feel like you had a place in this world? There.
That's a very good question. I like that one. So I've had some I don't know how much if you've seen them, but I've had a few varied ones where it's quite funny because sometimes it will be quite a sort of throwaway question, but then we end up going into quite funny things.
Very deep.
Sometimes it's like a really deep question, and then we go into just like So I don't know how that question. I know who the guest is next. I always make sure to ask if I before saying who the guest is, but I suspect from the conversations we've had via email that will make for an interesting conversation. So
Great.
Thank you for that. And an artist of some sort.
Oh, okay. You're going to listen to Soul Despair. Soul Despair.
Is that S-O-U-L or?
Yeah, Soul.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
soul is in like only S-O-L-E. Yeah.
Right. No. Yeah. Soul is in the soul inside you. And again, friends, my friend Pedro from Bragança, the corner of Portugal bordering on Spain, saw my YouTube videos. He loved them. We met at a show. I knew this kid had something in him. I bring him in and we start creating. And that's what I think you should do. Create, bring your friends into it, and make something that you can plug on a podcast at the end. So his band, which I produced here, is Soul Despair. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Any last words of wisdom and things you'd like to promote of your own?
Well, not really. I don't need to promote anything of my own, but I want to say thank you because this conversation was great. And whatever success it has in numbers or not won't account for this amazing hour that we just had together. And let's not let you, me, or the audience forget that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. That's a great place to end it. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.